I had always wanted to go to graduate school, and of course, Irvine was the hot place at the moment. So I went down there. Now, I met Nancy there. All of us were in the very first graduate program that they ever did. So I don't know how many of us there were. There were several women, but Nancy and I became and Chris Burden became the three that did these performative things and we put together F-Space, not just the three of us, but a bunch of us did F-Space, which is a artist cooperative gallery that we decided to do on our own, because the work we were doing, we knew that the school would never let us get away with. Let's see, I graduated in 71, and in 72 I came back, and what happened is I'd spent every cent of my money, all of my emotional energy. I was about to have a breakdown. I could not afford to move from Irvine to Pasadena or anywhere. And so I came up one time and had lunch with Stanley Grinstein. I was saying to him, he said, "How are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm stuck down in Irvine. I can't afford to move out." And he said, "Oh, well, we can't have you stuck like that." And he gave me $700 to pay for a moving van to get up here. So that was by 73, I was in my studio in Pasadena, and Suzanne was very instrumental. She came over to my studio, this is what I remember, and she says to me one time, because she was interested in what I was doing, and she says, "Well, are you a feminist?" And I was sort of like, I don't know. I wasn't that politically astute, and so I said, "I don't know." I said, "I don't know," and then I described who I am, which would have described a feminist, and I would have to have said I was, or maybe I did say so, and she was kind of disappointed because she was so charged with her mission, I would go down to the Women's Building frequently, because there are wonderful shows and workshops and conferences and things that happen. The one on Grandview, and then a bunch of us formed Grandview 1 and 2, which was a cooperative gallery too. We had two spaces because there were so many of us. And the piece I did with the women in the MacArthur Park, because I was really poor, and this was before I got my teaching position, I didn't know how I was going to survive, and I thought, man, I could end up on the street, and so I thought, wow, I wonder if there are any women out there on the street, and I was sure there probably would be. So I spent maybe 5 weeks wandering around MacArthur Park looking for women who were what at that time called bag ladies, and I found several, and talked three of them, actually four, but she tricked me, and she's absconded with the $5 I gave. But anyway, three of them to sit in the park bench in the gallery like they would have done in the park, and I sat in the park and took their places. It was an incredible piece as far as a spiritual piece, actually, for me, because these were great women, and one of them especially was an alcoholic, truly living in the park. The other two had places to live, but edgy, and she was alcoholic. She had a terrible sore in her ankle that wouldn't heal. She'd been alcoholic since she was a teenager, and she was powerful. She was really, really wonderful person. She had tremendous guilt because she thought she was responsible for her brother becoming alcoholic. Because she would hide her beers and stuff in trees, and he found them. So, anyway, the whole piece was about my trying to figure out, oh my God, I've opened this bag of worms, and there's no happy ending. There's no way, it's just the way it is, and I tried to think, whatever can I do to make something better? And I thought, okay, I'll try to find a doctor to treat Alice's ankle. And I did, but he would have to come down, or she'd come to him. And the day I came down to tell her, I said, hey, I've got this doctor to treat you. She said that one of the other people in the park had a doctor who had come and treated her. So that happened. But then when Bertha was the one who would hang out in the park, there were a group that sat in this sort of semicircle. They were all men, and they played these different instruments. And they were, every imaginable thing, like spoons. The guy who played spoons and banjos and ukuleles, guitars and what have you. On the last day, I told Bertha, I said, do you think those guys would come into the building and play their music? And she said, I don't know, I'll ask them. Because she would sit with them and she'd sing. She had this great torchy voice. So I brought like 30 sandwiches. I would bring a lunch every time the person sat in the park bench. So I brought 30 sandwiches and stuff, and I arrived, and Bertha had arrived, and a friend of hers, and I said, are they coming? And she said, no, they don't want to come. I said, oh, how come? She said, well, there's only women over there. And I said, aha. So I got, Allan Kaprow happened to be there, and Ransom Rideout, do you know who he was? And Ransom and Allan, I said, come with me. And we went over to the park, and I found them, and I said, I hear you don't want to come over because there's no men over there. And I said, well, these guys are there. There are men over there. And they said, and finally one guy said, okay, I'll come. And the other one said, okay, he'd come. And eventually they all came. And so we are going across the park to the building, and they all start playing the Battle Hymn of the Republic as we marched along. It was just so funny. So we get there, and they were afraid to play. They were hemming and hawing. And finally they started playing. And they all took turns sort of being the lead person, and they all played songs everybody knows. And so pretty soon, everybody from the women's building who was around came and sat and listened and danced. So that was the happy ending, and we created some kind of a crossover experience. But it was a good piece. From everyone, I think, got something out of it. The building was very important to me personally and my work, because it gave me a venue of where I could perform more or less frequently, and my work is not something that I create and it's packaged and then I come and do it. My work is more almost like experiments, and they're rites of passage for me, and I almost never repeat them, and they come to pass just at the time they're needed, kind of thing. It gave me a place for that kind of thing. But what I have understood, even as the years go by, it was important to have the women's building in a way that we were extremely lucky here in California, Southern California. I don't think any other place in the nation had such a resource, because say, there are a lot of women artists out here, say Karen Carson or Gila maybe, who didn't participate all the time at the building. But the fact that the building was there gave them this rich resource in their mind spirit that allowed them to feel like they had something backing them up, is my feeling, and it is true for me. Even though if you were a woman artist and you knew there was a women's building, you knew that there's somewhere where people cared about what we did. We're creating a history, or finding the history, and exploring and experimenting with women's issues. It was dynamite to have it there.